All movie lovers, of course, know all these actresses, and each of them is associated with one movie or another. Some roles stick in your memory, and the entire career of an actor or actress is connected with the character they played many years ago. It's hard to say that about Catherine Zeta-Jones. It is impossible to single out one such role. If you know what is the most memorable one, write in the comments. But unfortunately, this relatively young actress has practically finished filming, and in this video, we want to find out what happened to the career of Catherine Zeta-Jones. The career of the actress is like a Hollywood fairy tale. She didn't have a hard, winding road with multiple rejections and roles in extras. The actress began with major roles in European projects. Catherine made her big screen debut in 1990 when she played Scheherazade in the French-German comedy Les 1001 Nights. Philippe Broca's movie wasn't well received, but it drew attention to the young actress and gave her a chance to play Mariette in the British 1991 TV series The Darling Buds of May. During the following 4 years, Catherine, who had already become famous in Britain, played in a number of movies. The most significant are the comedy Blue Juice, where she co-starred with Stephen Mackintosh and Ewan McGregor, and the Victorian drama The Return of the Native, where she played the beautiful Eustacia. And in 1996, she starred in a Hollywood superhero movie with Billy Zane in The Phantom. And in 1998, the actress's breakthrough film, The Mask of Zorro, was already on the big screens. Steven Spielberg considered stepping up to direct in the earliest days of the film's production. Ultimately, however, he declined but remained attached as an executive producer. So when it came time to cast the film's female lead and romantic interest, he quickly made a suggestion that stuck. Before the Oscar-winning epic romance starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in 1997, a Titanic miniseries aired on CBS the previous year. The series was watched by Spielberg, who enjoyed Catherine Zeta-Jones' performance so much that he recommended her for the part of Ellen in The Mask of Zorro. And the new director Martin Campbell agreed with the choice of Spielberg and signed Catherine to the project for the lead female role. A curious problem was encountered during the filming. Since the film was made primarily for an English-speaking audience, the main characters had to be Spanish-speaking, and Banderas had to alter lines to avoid English words he couldn't say. Catherine, for her part, who hails from Wales, is perfectly cast as the sultry Spaniard. People thought Catherine was really Spanish. Her performance as Ellen has succeeded in tricking millions of audience members into thinking that she was Spanish, a deliberate and meticulous effort by the Welsh actor to have an authentic accent. Not only did Zeta-Jones take Spanish lessons, but she also focused on horse riding, dancing, and, of course, fencing during her preparation for her breakthrough role. From the present vantage point, it's hard to believe that The Mask of Zorro was anything less than destined to become a classic. But at the time, things were altogether less certain. Even as the film opened to substantial numbers, some critics predicted its ultimate doom. Antonio Banderas' first outing as the masked swordsman raked in $22 million at the box office on its opening weekend in July 1998, debuting at number 1. By the following weekend, however, the film had been displaced by Saving Private Ryan. The Mask of Zorro would eventually gross $94 million in the United States, as part of a worldwide total of $250 million from an initial budget of $95 million, with Roger Ebert calling it probably the best Zorro movie ever made. Ultimately, the film's substantial box office numbers proved the naysayers wrong, and it was even nominated for 2 Oscars in sound and sound effects editing. The audience immediately demanded a sequel and got one 7 years later. The film sees Antonio and Zeta-Jones reunite as Zorro and Ellen, now husband and wife, and try to ensure California becomes a United States state. The film was a lukewarm success at the box office, earning $142 million from an initial budget of $75 million. Still, given the aggressive promotional efforts for the film, the profit margin wasn't quite as impressive as that statistic might have you believe. Critics reacted incredibly negatively to the film. The film holds a score of 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. Given the spiky reception to The Legend of Zorro, there have been no announcements of any further installments in the franchise, and Banderas is likely too old to reprise the role once more. Her next film was Entrapment. Catherine was lucky enough to play with Sean Connery. telling the story of a relationship between an insurance investigator and a notorious criminal as they embark on a daring and dangerous heist at the turn of the new millennium. Despite receiving mixed reviews from critics, this didn't stop audiences from flooding into cinemas, and the film went on to bring in a respectable $212 million at the worldwide box office from a budget of around $66 million. After him, the actress received her first nomination for the Golden Raspberry, but the film is better known for its love scene between Sean Connery and Catherine Zeta-Jones in Entrapment, was voted the second worst of all time in 2003. The Paul, which was voted for by readers of Film magazine, had Joe Pesci and Sharon Stone's love scene from 1995's Casino in the #1 spot. Write in the comments which set is more awful for you. Followed by two failed films, High Fidelity and The Haunting. For the latter, actress was again nominated for a Golden Raspberry. This time, her pair with Liam Neeson did not like the critics. The next stage of the actress' career was the most successful of her career. For 3 films, she received $16 million and became a superstar. While filming Traffic, Catherine Zeta-Jones was pregnant with co-star and soon-to-be husband Michael Douglas's baby. As such, the script was reworked to accommodate her pregnancy. Traffic was a resounding success. The film, with a budget of $48 million, grossed $207 million at the worldwide box office and won 4 Oscars. America's Sweethearts was also quite successful at the box office, but the real apogee of Catherine's success in Chicago. Even before the screen adaptation, Chicago was one of the most successful musicals in Broadway history, holding the record for the longest-running musical on Broadway and for the longest-running American musical on the West End. The story of 2 vaudevillian villains and their journey to freedom is just as compelling now as it was back in 1975. When the screen adaptation was released in 2002, it gained its own reputation as a must-see, winning the Academy Award for Best Picture that year and 5 other awards. Chicago's 2 main characters, Roxy Hart and Velma Kelly, spend the movie oscillating between conservative allies and bitter rivals. By contrast, Catherine Zeta-Jones and Renee Zellweger were fast friends throughout the filming. With that said, even though the 2 were inseparable, behind the scenes, their people were battling their own battles. Nobody could decide which star deserved top billing over the other, leading to the names of both actresses appearing diagonally on most of the posters and promotional materials. Catherine was enamored with the role of fashionable murderess Velma Kelly, and she worked to master every step until she was black and blue with bruises. Her dedication to the character paid off when she was awarded the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, and she took no chances to ensure she was recognized for her hard work. For example, when one producer suggested the character have long hair, she shot down the idea and refused to budge. This is because she was worried people would see her hair blocking her face as she danced and assume that she had a body double instead of doing the dancing herself. The film became a legendary hit and received 6 statuettes. The film's budget was relatively small, at only $45 million, but at the box office, the film hit a jackpot of more than $300 million. After such successes, actress entered the category star, but as it turned out, not for long. And the next 3 films were quite successful, but the actress already had less influence in them. Intolerable Cruelty wandered through the studios of Hollywood for 8 years until Joel Coen and Ethan Coen took it on. The film, starring George Clooney, was received rather coldly by the audience and hardly made any money at the box office. In 2004, The Screens came out, one of the most starry films in the history of Hollywood, bringing together all possible. Catherine Zeta-Jones had a bright love line with Brad Pitt, but overall she was one of the cast. The actress still managed to work with Steven Spielberg in the same year on the project The Terminal. Although she plays the female lead in this movie, it's all quite episodic since Tom Hanks is a key figure in the narrative. And generally, somewhere at this point in her career, she took a wrong turn. So in 2005, she could have starred in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but she starred in the failed sequel The Legend of Zorro. And then, the actress chose extraordinary projects like death-defying acts and The Rebound. Yes, there was a successful and much-loved No Reservations where Catherine decided to seriously prepare for the role and worked one evening as a waitress in a prestigious New York restaurant. Many visitors paid attention to her and were surprised that the waitress looked so much like a famous actress, to which she replied, "I always say so." In 2010, Douglas was diagnosed with tongue cancer, and Zeta-Jones faced an emotionally turbulent time. This trigger led to Zeta-Jones suffering from depression, and despite initial apprehension, she spoke publicly about having bipolar disorder, and it is unclear determined whether the psychological state influenced the strange choice of roles or whether the actress has not called in big projects. But after a short break, it was complicated to come back, and the actress began to act in films that were initially doomed to failure, such as Rock of Ages and Lay the Favorite. The actress decided not to move to B-movies and try her hand at the series. This is generally a good strategy, so it stays in sight for directors and studios. Now the actress is only 53 years old, and now the future of the actress remains unclear. Legendary director Steven Soderbergh, who is also going through bad times, may bring himself and Catherine Zeta-Jones back to the top of Hollywood. He's set to direct a 3D rock musical called Cleo, starring Hugh Jackman as Mark Antony and Catherine Zeta-Jones as Cleopatra. Well, let's wish them luck.